What's up, you guys? It's Cody. Today I want to talk about 5 reasons why real estate prices are increasing so quickly. We've seen a very massive jump in real estate prices across the nation, and I want to explain a little bit of why that's happening and what you can do about it. If you're a first-time buyer looking to just get into the market for your very first home, or maybe you're a real estate investor looking to purchase more property, either to flip or to use as a rental property, this is going to give you some good insight as to why the market's going up and what you can actually do about it. So without further ado, let's jump into it. First, I want to talk about interest rates. Interest rates right now are at an all-time low. I have seen interest rates on VA loans as low as 1.99%. On standard conventional 30-year loans for conventional loans, I'm seeing that they're anywhere from about 2.5 to 2.75% for a personal property right now. This is absolutely amazing. When you actually factor in the cost of what this money costs to borrow, it's extremely cheap. Basically, the rate of inflation that we expect to see in America is roughly between 2 and 3%. Now, there's going to be some people who argue that and say, no, it's going to be lower, or yes, it's going to be way higher, especially with everything going on in the world right now. But with the rate of inflation basically outpacing these interest rates, you can almost argue that the cost of this money is costing you next to nothing. This interest rate at, let's say, between 2 and 3% as a general range is extremely low from what we've seen in the past. If we go back even just a year or two ago, we were somewhere in the 3 to 4% range, even 4.5% in 2018, I believe it was. So we've seen those interest rates come down significantly. I actually want to give you an example of how a lower interest rate can actually drastically affect your monthly payment on your mortgage. If we take a loan amount of $500,000 and put it at 3.5%, this gives you a principal and interest payment of $2,245. Now, if we take that same exact $500,000 loan but drop the interest rate to 2.5%, this now gives you a payment amount of $1,976. This is over a $250 difference on your overall mortgage payment. This comes out to a roughly 13.6% difference. Now, if we actually take that savings and pass it on to a higher loan amount, we're going to actually be able to bump up that loan amount to $570,000 at 2.5% interest rate, and that gives us roughly the same payment amount of $2,252, just a couple dollars extra than what it was with $500,000 at 3.5%. So you can see here that as the interest rates go down, the amount that you can borrow and have the same payment amount increases drastically. You can now afford theoretically $70,000 more on your actual loan in this scenario. So interest rates are driving a large part of that, and that's why I wanted to talk about that first. Now let's talk about the reasons number 2 and reason number 3. This is high demand and low inventory. Because of everything going on in the world right now, we've got extremely low inventory. Not a lot of people want to sell. Builders are backed up, supplies are backed up, everybody's kind of backed up or not wanting to sell, and so this is driving the inventory levels down from where we normally see them. Now, of course, what I'm talking about here in this example does not always pertain to every single market, right? Every market's going to have a little bit different problem or different numbers or whatnot, but in most major markets, we're seeing extremely low inventory and very high demand. So we talked about low inventory. Now let's talk about the demand side of things, because this is also a major problem as to why real estate prices are going up. Now, I just said we've got low inventory because people don't want to move. Well, there's another subsection of the market, of the demographic of people who are wanting to move. They are wanting to get out of, California or New York or these different states where maybe their taxes are high, or they're just tired of the cost of living or living there in general, right? They want to move to these cheaper states, and so we're seeing very high demand in states where I live, such as Utah. We're seeing high demand in Phoenix, Arizona. We're seeing high demand in Colorado, in Texas, in Idaho. A lot of these different states are seeing massive amounts of demand, and this is again pushing up the competition for real estate. Because of that, demand has gone through the roof and there's just not enough inventory. So this is one of those problems where inventory continues to go down, but demand keeps going up. This is really a problem because demand goes up and then inventory decreases. This further exaggerates the problem of real estate prices going up. All right, now let's talk about the 4th item on our list, which is materials. Obviously, I just said in a minute ago that materials are on short supply. We've seen the price of lumber go anywhere from about 50 to 100% more from what it was just a year ago before the pandemic started, right? A year ago, you could get a 2x4, just a standard 2x4, for about $3.50 to $4. Right now, that same 2x4 is going to cost you somewhere about $7 to $8, depending on your market. This is in part due to California wildfires. It's also in part to a lot of the logging and lumber mills being shut down. There's a lot of factors at play here, but basically what's happening is there's not enough lumber, and so the prices have increased quite drastically. This means that the price to build a house is going up significantly. significantly because the framing on the house is one of the most expensive parts. So as the price of lumber goes up, the cost to build the home goes up, and the builder says, well, hey, I still need to make a profit or I'm going to go out of business. So they pass that on to the buyer. The buyer then has to pay it. Well, again, the buyer is willing to pay it because there's so much demand in the market and there's such low inventory. So they don't really have another option. And so they go the new construction route. And again, this further exaggerates the problem of real estate prices going up. New construction generally does tend to lead the market oftentimes, because when somebody comes into the market and says, hey, I can buy this old house for $500,000, or I can go over here and buy a new house for $550,000, what are they going to do, right? Well, if it's going to cost $50,000 to fix up the old house to make it like new, then they might as well just go with the new construction home for $550,000, right? That's kind of how this market works on a macro scale. And the fifth thing that I have to talk about here is that people are offering over the asking price, and this is pushing up prices even further. Again, because of low inventory and high demand and high materials costs, we're seeing a lot of people come into the market and they're offering above the asking price. Right now in my market, it's not uncommon to see a $500,000 home sell for $520,000, $525,000, or even $530,000. Now you might say, okay, well, they're going to get an appraisal done, and that appraisal is going to kind of protect them based on what the market value of that home should actually be based on comparables, right? Well, only so much, right? Right now, I'd say probably about 50 to 75% of people are also offering to pay above the appraised price if it comes in lower than that purchase price. So I'm seeing that we'll get offers for $530,000 on that $500,000 home, and then the appraisal comes in at $515,000, and the buyer says, no problem, I'll pay $520,000, or I'll pay $525,000, or whatever that number is. They're going to pay above that appraised price. Now in 3 or 6 months, when the next appraiser comes back and looks at that home, they would say, oh, hey, this home actually sold for $525,000 instead of $515,000. They're going to see that price difference there, and it's going to, again, unfortunately, continue to push prices up. So where do we go from here, right? There's obviously real estate prices are increasing very rapidly. A lot of people are saying, hey, we need to see a crash. There's going to be a crash. You know, prices have to come down because they're just astronomical. And I think this kind of goes back to, the thing you have to keep in mind here is that this goes back to the age-old adage of, look, supply and demand is the driver of the market. In a capitalistic society like we have here, it always comes down to supply and demand. As long as we have factors of a lot of demand but not enough inventory, you're going to see those real estate prices propped up. Now, if that changes, if we see a lot of inventory start to hit the market, or we see demand drop significantly, then prices may start to drop. I think you will see some drops in major markets where people are moving out of, such as New York or California or Seattle or maybe the Midwest. A lot of these areas where people are getting out of, I think you could see a drop in the real estate prices. However, the areas where those people are going, Utah, Colorado, Idaho, Arizona, Texas, I don't think you're going to see a real estate drop anytime soon, barring any major national or world events. So again, if you're looking to get into the market and you're in one of these markets, I would say jump in sooner than later, because honestly, I think prices will continue going up. And if you look at it and you take advantage of those low rates, you're basically getting free money. You get to borrow that money for next to nothing. And there's a good chance that in 20, 30, 40 years, that home that you bought is going to be worth more in that time than it is right now. So that's what I would advise if you're in one of those markets. If you're in a market that everybody's getting out of, I don't know, maybe it makes sense to kind of wait a little bit and see. It just depends on your own individual situation. Even though I'm a real estate agent, I'm not going to say that buying a house is the right decision for everybody. So with all that being said, guys, thank you so much for watching. Give me a thumbs up here on the video if you enjoyed this content. Share it with a friend or family member who might enjoy it as well. Don't forget to subscribe. Don't forget to check out the links down in the description below if you want to get some free money. And with that said, I'll catch you in the next one.